Welcome into the TWMP Daily. I'm Scott Faughn, joined today by Representative Tricia Burns from Wentzville, Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, it's so funny how the legislative session moves. You know, people always talk about one thing, then the pace changes so quickly to what everybody's talking about. It's been a few weeks, but you had something everybody was talking about. Well, guys, what, 3-4 weeks ago now?
I would say yes.
About a month, yeah. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Right.
But I thought, out of some of the controversy around it, some of the talk, I think there is a bigger issue here. But let's first start with what happened. This is just my white trash hillbilly read of it. You're in a room, you see the 988, the suicide hotline, which I'll be honest, I didn't know about. There was a person at the department, Ms. Kimball, explained it to me, and kind of got me. Fortunately, I've never really dealt with some of those issues, and no one, not anybody in my immediate family has. But it seemed like a good thing to have this hotline where somebody could reach out. Outside of functions of government, outside of roads and schools, this seems like a good thing to do. But it had some issues, and you reached out to it on a text, and then set off a chain of events where a bunch of cops came, and it became a controversial situation. Tell me what made you get interested in what made you decide to file the legislation and get involved in improving 988?
Okay. Well, what you're describing is the series of unfortunate events that overshadowed a really good service that we can make better, because it's only been around for 3 years. So to say that it's in perfect condition, I don't think would be fair. And we should also look for ways for vulnerable people that would be calling 988 and their family members to improve it. So what sparked it? Because I think that's the thing. It wasn't a fishing expedition that, day of February 20th.
Well, it wasn't, I think, first of all, and that's why I kind of wanted to have you on. I don't think, just knowing you, just hearing these things and knowing you, you're not the type of person that would mischievously want to prank a hotline like this.
Right.
It was you've been active in this area of the law. You've been active on this issue set. You filed a piece of legislation to improve it. It's not as though you were sitting in your office thought, I'll do this, it'll be fine.
Absolutely not. So what happened is, personally, I reached out to 988. Back in my district, there was a situation where my husband and I were very concerned that it could become violent. We were trying to figure out how to de-escalate it.
Your husband's a judge.
Well, he's now a judge, yes. And he's been an attorney. We've been in criminal defense for a long time. So we've dealt with people who have some kind of episode, in the past. That's not unusual, being in criminal defense. So experiencing this, it was just a real volatile situation. And I didn't think it called for 911, but I wanted a lifeline just in case we couldn't de-escalate the situation. And my first message was, I need help. And then I instantly started getting these chat bots, and people are trying to say, it's not AI. I'm not even saying it's AI. It's a scripted type chat bot. And what I have to explain is that this is on the text. So 988 is not 911. It's a crisis service. It's not connected to 911 in any way, shape, or form. 988 has to reach out to 911 if it gets to, some kind of situation. So I already knew that they weren't connected because I've supported 988 and they've given that information out. But what ended up happening, I could not input the information that I needed help with for a series of 4.5 to 6.5 minutes is the average time when they give you these scripted questions. And if you don't give the exact response they're asking for, whether it's next and you have to type out NEXT, any kind of misspelling, it's going to repeat and you're just going to be in this cycle. And then what I uncovered is a really interesting situation and I understand LGBTQ and the need for mental health, but I said I didn't need that service. It didn't fit what I was looking for.
I read it looked like they were, this is a very uneducated opinion on this, but my white trash observation was, no matter what you did, they were trying to shove, are you trans, could you be trans, might you be trans, down your throat.
Right, and you just couldn't get past it. So when it had this survey, and so you had to go away from the text and fill out the survey. But what I thought is, finally, I'm going to be able to input what I need help with, because anytime I try to put it, it would just say, sorry, that's not what we're asking. We need you to answer.
Are you sure you're not trans? Are you double sure you're not trans?
So there is also two-spirit, gender fluid. There was 11 different options as far as what gender. You'd think you'd cover them all, and then when you scroll down, it asks, well, are you transgender? And I'm like, I don't know how we missed that with the 11 options. But then there was 4 answers to, are you transgender? Yes, no, maybe, I'm not sure. And I'm finally like, what is happening here? And in the end, somebody that's in crisis isn't getting the help that they need.
It looked like if you said yes to trans, you got connected quickly. If you didn't, frankly, and I'm maybe not the smartest guy that's ever looked at this, it wasn't there. So you ended up putting in that you had a gun, right?
So that was my personal experience. So I had this very troubling personal experience I gave up on, and this is also a piece people don't know. So I immediately took action. And I think people know that I tackle those like mom-heavy passion issues, right? And I could see that families and people in crisis would struggle with this. So I went to Rolla with another representative. We looked at their reports. We went over this transcript I had, and they were all very troubled by it.
And I think that's the part of this that got a little lost. If you didn't know you, there are some of your colleagues that act a little clownish that would maybe prank this for some political gain. That really is not your reputation in any way.
Thank you.
And on this issue, it is not like you just happened onto this. You took a trip to Rolla, which from Wentzville is not a straight drive.
Right.
You've been involved. But the part of it I think, that was the touch point was when the scene, as I understand it, was you're in the room, another representative's in the room, representative Order, and a person from the Compass, which administrates the line, was in the room. And they were all saying, oh, try this, try to test the system to see if it ended up working out like you'd like it to. And when you did, it set off a reaction that the police ended up responding,
right.
Which I think is probably good, the way it should be. If you do text the system and say you're going to have a gun, someone should check on you. But it ended up being a situation where I think the cops were angered by it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't understand. And so I knew if we could get people in the room and get eyes on this, they would feel differently, which is ultimately what happened. And what led up to it was a real immediate concern. So what I was being told in that moment, after they saw my personal transcript, was they said, wow, you never seem to trigger an interaction between another person.
Yeah.
And they said 84 times a month, somebody will use 988. And they should have called 911, and that's somebody who has a gun to their head or somebody who actively harmed themselves.
Well, let's just talk hogs, dogs, and logs for a second. It was probably, in hindsight, not the move to test it out in a live situation like that.
So I got to tell you, I think a lot of people can do stuff in hindsight.
Yeah. Well, easy. We're talking about hindsight. And also, I think you'd say...
honestly, I don't like that that law enforcement... had so much energy on the back end that I wasn't expecting. But every person I've talked to, even law enforcement, they come to the realization of, had you not tested, I'm not sure we would have ever known.
But we want to be clear. You would, I think, you encourage...
No, I would never,
Yeah.
I'm a state representative working on legislation that I already had researched.
Yes.
And this was under our state provider.
I mean, to ask you
You
would agree, I think, that no one...
No,
Missouri,
yes,
listen to
they
me for a
should
second.
not do it.
Do not test this line. If you have concerns about this line, reach out to the representative. She's very easy to contact. Or another one, or Compass or the department. Don't test it out, right?
That absolutely. Yes, please learn from my
And if you
experience.
could do this again, probably that's the way to go about it. Probably could have been done differently.
Well, right. And we're also trying to figure out what's interesting is there's the veteran path, there's the LGBTQ path, and the Representative Reuter, she's a lawyer, she's also another handler of this bill as well. We would like to test it, right? But we haven't, because we can't find anyone that knows the appropriate way. So we have asked the providers, we've asked dispatchers, and we've now asked law enforcement and our House legal team, and none of them know the appropriate way to see if you would get that same delayed response.
And your message to the law enforcement community in Jeff City was probably wouldn't win about it like this.
No, absolutely. But what I think is really important is I just talked to Chief. I talked to Zim Schwartz yesterday. She spent a great deal of time in my office, and I knew what would happen. So basically, I had no idea what they were going through on their side, and it's really important because 82 times a month something like this can happen where it's an active situation and they need to get to someone. So I didn't. By the way, 988. then routed calls to 911 instead of interacting with me.
So this is my
It
observation.
took an hour and 22 minutes to have any personal contact with me after
The
that
system
text.
is flawed. And I think, one of the silver linings of this, although I think you'd agree, not the way to go about it, hope nobody else goes about it this way.
Right.
The state of play now. I have, this brought it to my attention, the problems. I had no idea these were things, but the call system seems to have very good reviews. If you
Yes.
actually call, I think most folks feel the service is operating as you'd hope. And nothing's perfect. Obviously, this is a very touchy situation, but it's working well. The Compass itself, I'll just tell you, I have had a very close family member go to Compass for counseling, and I don't know how to be more, I don't even want to say the counselor's name because I don't know how all that works, but I will just tell you, I could not have been more impressed with Compass as a counseling organization. I had no idea they were running the hotline, but just Compass itself, I will give them, if I was on Yelp, I give them a 5-10 star review.
Absolutely.
The texting. Here's the thing. Casey, younger than me, she communicates 95% through text. My daughter, probably 99. That's how, and we're talking suicide. You kind of nailed it. You have veterans suicide issues. You have cop suicide issues, and but you have a younger person is really who the focus is. And younger people, from my observation, they text. They don't call people. And I hate chatbots. I don't like them. I find them to be totally worthless. And so when I was reading through this, it was clear this is just scripted. I don't know if you call it AI or what, but this is not a person responding to that text. This is just a filtering system, and you have to press 1 for English and all that. I don't understand why you have to press 1 for English. I think you should be able to, and it did feel, and I personally think, the trans community has a higher suicide rate than maybe other folks, and I think that probably is something, and I wouldn't know how to do it, but should be filtered in. But it did feel like, boy, they were really pushing, are you trans? Are you trans? Are you trans? What do you do to go about? I mean, currently it does feel like the chat system needs a lot of work. Now,
I think so. And the people what's unique about my experience is I can now compare a transcript in December from the transcript in February. And you can see it's very scripted, it's very repeated. But the biggest problem is on a suicide hotline, you need to intervene within a minute to reduce that suicide rate by 50%.
And it needs to be a person.
And this is 4.5 to 6.5 minutes before you can even tell them what the problem is. So my bill was really a simple bill, and it's one of those things, we all kind of say, like, this.
Has there ever been a bill introduced that wasn't introduced as a simple bill?
All I was asking was if somebody reaches out to 988, you should ask them, what do you need help with? And do you need 911, or do you just want to talk? And that is what, it's created so much controversy over that bill. And when people see that, they're like, yeah, we do need to reduce that time.
Okay.
So I've created several task force, and I think that's important.
Let's talk hogs, dogs, and logs here. Let's get nerdy about it.
Okay.
So right now, you say the call system, good.
Yes, and Missouri has great figures. Missouri's doing really well with calls.
Maybe I got lucky, but I thought Compass on the counseling side, outstanding. Don't know how to compliment them more. I am not an expert.
They're also building a community outreach, which is phenomenal. They are doing great things.
So right now, how much is the state appropriating to the suicide hotline?
So right now, the 988 service, and I'm not sure how much is included if it's just the call centers alone, but it's 2025 is 19.8 million. 4.4 is from feds. The rest is from state general revenue.
It probably costs a good amount of money. I mean, employees for everywhere, hard to get. It's probably costing a decent amount of money to be in a room and having somebody 24/7 manning this, or a staff of people.
Right.
Right now, it's a federal kind of compilation that's doing the texting.
Right. So it sounds to me, because this is still pretty hard to unravel, and then the controversy did not help.
I think it did help, actually.
Well,
I think it.
Maybe,
I
you
would
may
have
be
known
right
about this.
We wouldn't be talking. Maybe you're right. Maybe we wouldn't be talking about it. But so the federal government has hired Vibrant as the contractor. So from what I'm gathering, they're the ones that are handling the text and chat, at least from a scripting point of view and a training perspective. So that's what I was told, is the federal government's handling the text and chat.
Let me ask you this. Is it so? There's every state can access this, right?
Yes.
So to me, the question I would have is, can you fix the current system, or should Missouri start its own?
Well, I think we have to work within our own framework. Within years, we're going to be fully funding it ourselves. The federal government plans on pushing that back to the state. So my concern is, why do we have a federal agency dictating how we're handling calls to our young people on the text portion of 988?
I would say that a chatbot, it's not that it's worthless, but it's not worth much. And I from what I saw, might even cause more harm than good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the chatbot thing that's not working, in my opinion.
I saw a quote that just broke my heart, and someone said, "At my darkest hour, the best the state could do for me was a chatbot." And I was like, wow.
Well, and look, I think you're going to have some of your colleagues and say this is not the role of government, but I think when you start expanding the role of government, this is a logical thing. What would it? Do you know what it would cost to have the 988 right now? If you call it, we don't touch that system. If it's the federal government saying, well, whoever's doing 988 on the call side,
our state providers, I think, are doing a really great job.
On the federal system, what would it cost to have a person manning the text line 24/7?
I don't know what that cost would be.
If it's $15 million
that's
right
what I'm saying.
now
We're
for
digging into that
a chatbot
now.
system, which I'm sure costs something, but
well,
not
the
much.
the 19.8 is for all of 988. So I don't have the breakdown of who gets paid and what contractor. So I don't know what portion of that is the text services.
And could you even bifurcate them? I that's interesting. I mean, the tech people, Kelton would know if you could actually, when you reach out to 988 via phone call, if you could go there via text. I don't know how that works, but to me, I guess the next thing is, can you fix the federal system, or you just have to start your own, right?
Well,
what's the right way to go forward?
We do use the system that we have. We use the infrastructure, and all we have to fix is the scripting. Instead of asking someone after they've texted in English and then they said, read our terms of agreement in English, the next question shouldn't be, do you speak Spanish? It should be, how can I help? If you reach out to a mental health crisis or suicide, it's suicide and mental crisis. They're not just reaching out for suicide, right? You don't know if they're just having thoughts or if they're actively in the moment of suicide, like we said. So simply put, ask them, what do you need help with? And that is a way you can triage how serious that text is. But a person should be triaging that initial contact, not going through 4.5 to 6.5 minutes of robotic responses and then a survey that takes you off-site. It's real simple. And then when I have talked to the call folks, our state providers, they tell me, just so you know, we already ask, how can we help when we get them on the phone? And I'm like, fantastic. How do we translate what's so obvious over to the text line? Because even when you call 911, I looked it up, and that 911 will say, where's your emergency, or what is your emergency? So it just seems like such a leap. Like, why is that a hard ask to train the 988 people to look at that script and say, we should not be asking all of these questions before we even get to the meat of why they even called?
It may just be that I'm old. I just hate chatbots. And I hate them. I hate them when my Amazon package doesn't show up. I hate them when I'm trying to get a phone returned at AT&T. I hate them. I don't like them. And I don't think in a sensitive situation, I think they're even more crappy.
Right.
It just feels like to me, if you're going to have the system, and obviously a lot of the system is going to be used probably predominantly by young people that prefer to communicate via text, to me it's time to be smarter and actually have a person on the end of the line. And I don't think you should have to press 1 for English in Missouri.
Right.
I don't know how Kamala Harris sets stuff up, but in Missouri, you shouldn't have to press 1 for English.
Right.
And if AT&T, if you're listening, I don't want to press 1 for English. I just want it to be English. You have a Spanish number if you want, or Mexican number, whatever you want. But I think sometimes our liberal friends overthink stuff.
Right.
I actually think part of this system has to be at least some significant training on trans issues, because I have seen a lot of people. I can't imagine feeling the way a trans person feels, and I bet you there is a lot of mental stress and pressure that comes from that.
Right.
And boy, it makes total sense to me to have the people trained and prepared to handle what I would assume would be a chunk of these contacts. But it did feel like, boy, they were just pushing that hard to you.
It was, this is my script and you're going to answer it the way I want you to answer it regardless. And I think people need to understand that this was a test of the chatbot. It was to say, we started out and we escalated very quickly. I feel suicidal, and our state provider sitting next to me was giving me the prompts. She's like, okay, right away, that should prompt a personal response. And it didn't. It still drove home that. Then she said, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, because if you don't put in next, N-E-X-T, they're repeating the question. She said, okay,
it was
say
very
I have a
complicated.
gun in my house, because that's what they will hear from people
Sure.
in 2% of the calls. So we text, I have a gun in my house. It actually repeated that same question. It didn't engage at all. That word gun didn't trigger a human response.
Do you think you could make a chatbot be sensitive enough to respond to somebody who's truly suicidal, enough to call the hotline?
No.
I don't think you can either.
No.
I don't think you can fix a chatbot. Now, the future, who knows, Elon Musk, whatever, but as of today, I don't believe you can design a chatbot system to effectively delineate such a sensitive situation. But let's recap here. Number one, you had no intention to put law enforcement in a bad spot.
No, personal experience.
And I assume you apologize to them. It's been smoothed over. Whatever the legal stuff's all worked out. Number two, you would definitely encourage no one else to test the system.
Absolutely.
Number
not.
three, you've been working on this system for a long time, and you feel like it's a good service the state could provide.
Yes.
We think the call part of it seems to be working quite well. The text
Absolutely.
part's got an issue. What is the steps forward now to try to address the chatbot texting situation?
Okay, so I've done two things that are big in getting us to the next step. I've met with, I did a Zoom call yesterday with all of our providers from a mental health perspective, and we're going to create a task force to say what suggestions could we do, because we're going to have to reach together, and Missouri's going to have to reach out to the federal government and say, this isn't acceptable. Then you have the back, and that's the law enforcement response, and that 2% of calls. And so talking to Chief Schwartz and Captain Kemper, they are going to go reach out to the folks that were involved in that call and let them know the front end on what we saw and how I didn't get a response for an hour and 22 minutes. And then on the backside, they didn't know that case had been closed. But what's crazy, I just found out yesterday, they didn't even have my phone number. So 988 had my phone number. They called 911 in St. Louis. They had my phone number. Jefferson City called, but they didn't get the phone number of that call. So just simple things like that could have really helped them if they would have been shared the name and the number of that caller, which everyone had. So just digging into those kind of questions will be much more efficient for law enforcement. And we're going to have a task force meeting on that as well. We're going to put together a group to say, how can we, on the back end of those type of calls, how can we make it more efficient for the help seeker?
End of the day, what's the best outcome here? Just give her the chatbot part of it.
End of the day is, if you can't ask what somebody's problem is, and if they need 911 immediately, you shouldn't be doing texting. It's going to end tragically outside of that.
Feels right. Representative, you've been generous with your time. You actually have a job to do over at the Capitol. I'm going to get you back to
Yeah.
it. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, United Fiber, the Courtyard by Marriott. When the judge comes to town, there's only one hotel you can put him up in, right? Got to be the Courtyard,
Absolutely.
right? And then you see this, I kind of thought it was funny to not mention it till now. Jordan, Representative Castile's very significant other, the better, not just the better half, the better three-fourths, bought me the biggest stein I've ever got in my life. I absolutely love it. I'm going to put a picture of me and Jordan up on Twitter and Facebook today. This is outstanding, Jordan. Thank you so much. I just adore you, and I love this stein. How many Bud Lights could you fit in this
That might be an entire case.
Yeah,
It's like a little keg.
Jordan, I can promise you, within the next week, I will find out, and I will get the answer to you how many Bud Lights will fit in this beer stein. Thank you so much, Representative. Thank you. I know this has been
Thank you for having me.
complex, topsy-turvy issue, and it does feel like out of something bad, it feels like maybe collaboratively everybody can make something good happen. And I think you're right. I think it's a good idea, but I think having a chat bot, it's the wrong place for a chat bot.
And I'm committed to saving lives on this.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. You'll see Jake in here tomorrow. I don't know what the bearded wonder is going to be up to. He'll have a daily show. Then Sunday on This Week in Missouri Politics, Brad Pollitt, and an all-star opinion maker panel on Sunday. We'll see you then.